Okay, welcome. Welcome everyone. We're continuing our class on the Srimad Bhagavatam, story of Narada Muni, and how he saw Krishna, and how Krishna left him, and what he did. Okay, just give me a moment to go on Mayapur TV. And then I will have access to the chat. Krishna Govinda, Hari Hari. Okay, Timothy and Carolina, welcome. Here we are. To change this slightly. Made it worse. I just want to, let me pull this up a little bit. It's good now. Yeah, it's good now. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from my computer. I don't know if we read this verse, but this is text 21. It's the 6th chapter, first canto of the Bhagavatam. Antasmin jamani bhavan mam drashtum iharati abhipakva kushayanam durdharshoham kuyoginam. We read this. Remember the word kuyoginam? You remember? Kuyoginam? O Narada, the Lord spoke, I regret that during this lifetime you will not be able to see me anymore. Those who are incomplete in service and who are not completely free from all material taints can hardly see me. Personality of Godhead is described in the Bhagavad Gita as the most pure, the supreme, and the absolute truth. There is no trace or tinge of materiality in his person, and thus one who has the slightest tinge of material affection cannot approach him. The beginning of devotional service starts from the point when one is freed from at least two forms of the material modes, namely passion and ignorance. The result is exhibited in signs of being freed from lust and covetedness, kama and lobha. That is to say, one must be freed from the desires for sense gratification and avarice for sense gratification. The balanced mode of nature is goodness. Not attracted, not repulsed. That's sattva guna. Passion is attraction, ignorance, repulsion. And to be completely free from all material tinges is to become free from the mode of goodness also. To search the audience of God in a lonely forest is considered to be the mode of goodness. One can go out into the forest to attain spiritual perfection. But that does not mean that one can see the Lord personally there. One must be completely freed from all material attachment and be situated on the plane of transcendence, which alone will help the devotee get in personal touch with the personality of Godhead. The best method is that one should live at a place where the transcendental form of the Lord is worshipped. The temple of the Lord is a transcendental place, whereas the forest is a materially good habitation. A neophyte devotee is always recommended to worship the deity of the Lord, Archana, rather than go to the forest to search out the Lord. Devotional service begins from the process of Archana, which is better than going out in the forest. The present life, which is completely freed from all material hankering, Sri Narada Muni does not go into the forest, although he can turn every place into Vaikuntha by his presence only. He travels from one planet to another to convert mad gods, kinnaras, gandharvas, rishis, munis, and others to become devotees. By his activities, he has engaged many devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva, Maharaj, and others in the service of the Lord. A pure devotee of the Lord therefore follows in the footsteps of great devotees like Narada and Prahlad, and engages his whole time in glorifying the Lord by the process of kirtan. Such a preaching process is transcendental to all material qualities. So here, Prabhupada is saying by giving Krishna to others, of course, engaging in devotional service is transcendental to the modes of nature, and unless you're transcendental, you can't see Krishna. So here, Narada is telling the story. He was not firmly situated transcendentally. So therefore, Krishna appeared, but he disappeared. He just appeared to give him some impetus, and then he disappeared. And Prabhupada said that he's kind of talking about Narada's process. He went to the forest, he meditated. So better than that is worship the deity, and then also give Krishna to others. So we'll go to the next verse, because we read this one yesterday. So this is the next verse we haven't read yet. It's text 22. I just want to make sure my volume is okay. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. It's perfect. Okay. Sakridyad dharshitam rupam etat kamaye te nagha mat kama shanakai sadhu sarvan muchari richchayan. We actually read this also. O virtuous one, you have only seen my person once, and this is just to increase your desire for me. Because the more you hanker for me, the more you will be freed from material desires. A living being cannot be vacant of desires. He is not a dead stone. He must be working, thinking, feeling, and willing. But when he thinks, feels, and wills materially, he becomes entangled. And conversely, when he thinks, feels, and wills for the service of the Lord, he becomes gradually freed from all entanglement. The more a person is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, the more he acquires a hankering for it. That is the transcendental nature of godly service. Material service has satiation, whereas spiritual service of the Lord has neither satiation nor end. One can go on increasing his hankering for the loving transcendental service of the Lord, and yet he will not find satiation or end. By intense service of the Lord, one can experience the presence of the Lord transcendentally. Therefore, seeing the Lord means being engaged in his service, because his service and his person are identical. The sincere devotee should go on with sincere service. The Lord will give proper direction as to how and where it has to be done. There was no material desire in Narada, and yet, just to increase his intense desire for the Lord, he was so advised. So, Prabhupada's saying here, we read this verse yesterday and the purport, but the last thing he's saying is he didn't have material desire, but his hankering for Krishna needed to be increased. So not having material desire is one thing, but desiring Krishna. Just because you have no material desire, if you're not in bhakti, doesn't mean your desire for Krishna will be intense. See, that's the positive side. You have to intensify your desire for Krishna. So Krishna is helping Narada Muni intensify his desire by appearing before him and then disappearing. Now his desire intensified. And so that's what he needed. Text 23, which we didn't read yesterday. Sat sevayat dirghayapi jatamayi dhritamati itvadhyam imam lokam ganta maj janatamasi. I don't think we read it. By service of the absolute truth, even for a few days, a devotee attains fixed and firm intelligence in me. Consequently, he goes on to become my associate in the transcendental world after giving up the present deplorable material worlds. Did we read that? Serving the absolute truth means rendering service unto the absolute personality of Godhead under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master, who is a transparent via medium between the Lord and the neophyte. We read this. The neophyte has no ability to approach the absolute by the strength of his present imperfect senses, and therefore, under the direction of the spiritual master, he is trained in the service of the Lord. By such training, even for some days, the neophyte devotee gets intelligence. We read this. I think this is the last thing we read. Which leads him ultimately to get free from perpetual inhabitation in the material world and to be promoted to the transcendental world, to become one of the liberated associates of the Lord in the kingdom of God. Okay, this is a verse we didn't read. I'm sure of this. Matirmai nibadheyam navipadyeta karichit prajasarga nirodhepi smitischa mad anugrahat. So this is Krishna speaking to Narada Muni. He sees Krishna, and Krishna disappears, and now he hears Krishna speaking to him. Intelligence engaged in my devotional service cannot be thwarted at any time. Even at the time of creation, as well as at the time of annihilation, your remembrance will continue by my mercy. He's giving encouragement here that if you engage your intelligence to serve Krishna, to understand Krishna, then because of that effort, Krishna will always protect you. You'll always have devotional service and you'll never be deviated. He's saying because at any time, creation or annihilation, your remembrance will continue by my mercy because you've applied yourself. Your intention is to be Krishna conscious. You apply your mind, your body, your senses. So Krishna says then, if you do that, you have my protection. Krishna will always fulfill your intention. Devotional service rendered to the personality of Godhead never goes in vain, since the personality of Godhead is eternal. Intelligence applied in his service, or anything done in his relation, is also permanent. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that such transcendental service rendered under the personality of Godhead accumulates birth after birth, and when the devotee is fully matured, the total service counted together makes him eligible to enter into the association of the personality of Godhead. Such accumulation of God's service is never vanquished, but increases till it is fully matured. So what's being explained here is how we advance in Krishna consciousness. And it's an accumulation, and when it accumulates, Prabhupada says here that it becomes fully matured. And so in the process of rendering devotional service, we want to achieve higher states of devotional service, but we can't achieve them right away because we have to accumulate the bhakti sukriti. And by the more service we do, the more sukriti, the more we become purified, the more we understand Krishna. So there's things that we cannot understand in our present conditions that we'll only understand by continuing devotional service, because we become more purified, and then we're in a position to realize more, to understand more. So in the interim state, what can often happen is that we're not realizing the goal, and we're becoming discouraged by the obstacles. And then sometimes we tone down our devotional service because of the discouragement, because we're not seeing the results. But the results are there. They're piling up, just like you're investing money. And so you invested a little money this year, next year. It doesn't show up as much. But 40 years from now, your $100 a month investment becomes $500,000. But a year from now, your $100 investment is only, it only shows up as a few $1,000s, right? There's a story that Krishna, he wanted something. I think he was playing a game of chess and he won, and they were betting something, and I forget what he was betting. But he said, I just want as many squares are there on the chessboard. I just want, how many squares on a chessboard? Anybody know? 64. So he said, I just want, 61, and then 2, and then 4, and then 8, 64 times. And it came out to like billions of whatever it is that he wanted, money or gold or I don't know what. So devotional service is something like that. It accumulates, and it doesn't seem like much is happening in the beginning. So at that point, we think it's not happening because we still feel this connection to the modes of nature. And we feel that's more prominent than our connection to Krishna. And the bliss and the realization that comes from our connection to Krishna seems more temporary, and the anarthas that we're connected with they seem more permanent. So then we question, is it even working? So what we can learn from this is that it is working, but just as it requires time for the investment to mature. When it starts to mature, then you feel it more strongly. And then when you come to the stage of ruchi, then you fully, not fully, but you at that point, you begin to become aware that the process is really working. Even on anartha vritti, you become aware. But when you go to nishta and then to ruchi, your experience is now on the stage of ruchi. It's a constant experience of taste from devotional service. And now you're experiencing all the work you've done previously that you didn't experience, or you didn't experience as much as you'd like to experience, it accumulates. And that's the process. So sometimes one questions, well, why someone becomes a devotee, why someone doesn't. And so one understanding is there's an accumulation, that you're teaching Krishna consciousness and somebody takes it up eagerly right away, and somebody after years and years they don't. Because there's an accumulation of bhakti sukriti. And when it accumulates to a point, at that point the faith arises so that one can hear and one can practice. Whereas for other people, they haven't evolved their bank account of sukriti enough so that when they hear, they don't hear with enough faith or with enough desire to surrender, even a little bit. Enough desire to move forward, not even completely surrender, just to move forward. So then we say, okay, take prasadam, come to class, come to kirtan, keep building your account, because at some point it will build to the point where faith will develop. And then you can hear, and then you can surrender. That's how it works. So we can't become discouraged if it's not working fully, because you have to keep depositing. And the more you deposit, the more it'll go on. The more you're hearing, chanting, serving, hearing, chanting, serving, associating, worshiping the deity. It just keeps going on and on. Little investments are being made. And if this were not true, Prabhupada would not have come to America, because he would have said that people are too impious. But Prabhupada was asked, what did we do to get Krishna consciousness? What piety did we do? And he said, you didn't do anything. I created your piety. In other words, by engaging you in devotional service, then you created this bhakti sukriti, this piety and bhakti that you could take to devotional service. So Prabhupada was asked, well, how does someone take? And he said, it's by good fortune they take to Krishna consciousness. And he said, how do they become fortunate? Prabhupada said, we are their good fortune. So he meant the same thing, that we engage them in devotional service. So that we become their good fortune by engaging them. Here, take prasadam, take a book, read this book, come to our temple, partake in kirtan. By engaging them, it builds up their sukriti, and then at some point they'll be able to take to bhakti. So even in this life, they may not be able to. So we distribute prasadam, we distribute books. We're giving everyone a chance. So it'll, even if it takes 1,000 lifetimes, still it has to start somewhere. But those who are more advanced are the ones who, when they hear, they take to it more easily. They already have faith because of past sukriti. Or we see even amongst Americans that sometimes people come to the temple and right away it's like a fish who's jumped in the water. They just feel comfortable with the devotees and they want to do devotional service, and it's very easy for them. And they don't have problems with believing what's in the scripture, what Prabhupada says. And so they've built up that sukriti. Or they've come to that point and they do devotional service, and then it accumulates more and then they want to become devotees. And then if you look at their past from a material perspective, their past conditioning, it doesn't always seem sensible that they would join an Indian religion or this culture. But it's because of the past sukriti. They're naturally attracted. So, with this understanding, we go on to devotional service, knowing that by continuing, it will work, even if we don't think it's working as quickly as we'd like it to work, or even if we sometimes don't think it's working at all. Which may be true, that it's not working well because we're not applying it well. But still, if the effort is there, it does work. If we're applying it, at least in an average way, it does work. It just takes time. So that confidence is important, that I'm doing this and it is working, even if I don't perceive it, it is working. And so we go on enthusiastically every day, doing the same thing, because we know it's like a disease. It's a slow recovery. It might take 40 years to cure the disease, 50 years. But Prabhupada said that's not much, considering how long we've been conditioned. So if it takes 50 years, what's the problem? If it takes 2 lifetimes, what's the problem? We're being cured, right? And when devotees have difficulty with this and lose patience because they feel that they're so fallen that it's kind of useless for them to continue, my question to them is always, what's the option? And when you look at the option, you realize that struggling in devotional service is always the best option. Because all the other options, what do they produce? They aren't good options. So even if we're having difficulty in Krishna consciousness, even if we're losing patience, but still, by following the process, eventually at some point we get to the goal. And that's the only goal which is worth pursuing. And every other option brings us back to where we were when we came here. And no matter what happens, the process we're going through is always the process we have to go through to get there. Just like, let's say there's traffic, but there's only one way to get to your destination. Then you have to sit in the traffic. And there's no other way you can do it. You're looking this to the right and to the left, and you're seeing it's just farms to the right, and there's no roads. You can't do anything. So you have to tolerate the traffic, knowing that if I go off the road looking for a better path, I have to get back on this road. There is no other road. So if we give up Krishna consciousness because we lose faith or we lose patience, then when we take it up again, we're just going to take it up from where we are now. We have to still cross that road. That's the way to get there. It's not like you come back in your next life and there's a new road. And sometimes we don't realize this. No, it's the same road, and you'll be in the same position in your next life. You'll have to cross the same road. The same anarthas that we die with, we'll be dealing with in the next life. Now, you might say, but what if I'm born in a family of devotees? Okay, so then you have an advantage that you can start it from the beginning. But still, you'll have to start with the same consciousness and anarthas you died with in this life. It's just, maybe you're in a better position now because now you don't have to add another 20 or 30 years of contamination to the practice, because you can start in your next life as a devotee. But it doesn't mean the past is washed out. It just means that you can start from the beginning, which is obviously easier, but there's no guarantee that you'll be in a better position just because you can start from the beginning. You may start from the beginning and be deviated. And we see that also. So, understanding all these things, then we consider the present position is always the best position to work from. It's the only position we can work from, and it's the best position to work from. So we work as best we can from this without being discouraged. Prabhupada, he showed by his example that a devotee is never discouraged, even if there is reason to be discouraged. And he was one lone sadhu in the West without any help. So that was discouraging, but he remained enthusiastic. And so we have to be true to what is right, even if it's difficult, even if we struggle with it. Because Krishna, not that Krishna likes to see us suffer, but Krishna appreciates the struggle. Like I was saying to, last night, I was saying to somebody yesterday that sometimes when we're chanting, we're not getting a taste. And then it becomes a real struggle to chant. And the meditation at that point is Krishna He is watching you chant, and now he wants to see if you'll give up your enthusiasm because you're not getting a taste. So you can be thinking, okay, Krishna, I will chant to glorify you, even if I don't get a taste. And I will remain enthusiastic and determined, even if I don't get a taste. And Krishna might say, okay, that's very nice. And then Krishna will say, I like that attitude, here's a taste. But the other attitude is, I kind of decrease the intensity of my chanting, and I alter my mood so it's not so devotional. And then Krishna says, oh, so now, just see. There was some little obstacle and you just kind of decrease the intensity of your chanting because of this obstacle. Okay. So then you miss out on the opportunity. So opportunity for His mercy. So if there is a struggle, if we're not getting a taste sometimes either in chanting or in anything, or if we feel we're not advancing and we're losing some enthusiasm, it's nice to think, okay, Krishna's watching now. He wants to see what I'll do in this situation. It's not an optimal situation. The paradox of it also is that sometimes we are making such a poor effort, and that's the reason we don't get a taste. And then we're becoming discouraged. It doesn't make sense. It's like you have a relationship with someone, but you don't add to the relationship, so the relationship gets bad, and then you blame the person for a bad relationship. So often we don't put into devotional service what we should put into it, and then we become discouraged that there's nothing coming out of it. Right? So we have to be careful that, oh, what's the use? I'm not experiencing anything, or I'm not advancing as quickly as I'd like to. Well, sometimes we have to ask the question, well, is there anything we're doing wrong? Anything we can correct in this situation? And inevitably, the answer is yes. There is. So I just have to go and see if there are questions. Hare Krishna. Okay, we have something. Bhaktin, Roma, and Reha. Well, Bhaktin, Roma, and Reha, we are now continuing from where we left off at your house, but we are probably 8 verses ahead. Reha's trying to work, but it doesn't log in, but it doesn't seem to work. Mayapur.tv, Mahatma Das. If it doesn't work, refresh. Or she's trying to log into chat. Sometimes logging into chat doesn't work. You can log into, it doesn't even work for me. Then go to Krsna.com and log into chat there. And I'll go there also. We have we do double duty here. Sometimes we do Krsna.com chat while we're on Viber TV, because somehow getting on chat on my TV is, I don't know, challenging. Can be. Hold on, folks. See if any of you are there on Krsna.com. Anyway, if you want to go on Krsna.com, I'll be there also. Yeah, so some of you are on Krsna. So, Ray has on Krsna.com. That's good. Okay. All right, so now I have to bring up. Hold on, everyone. Krsna.com, and I lost my Mayapur TV. Oh no, did I? Anyway, I'm now on Krsna.com. So if you want to chat, go to Krsna.com, because I just lost my poor TV somehow. Okay. Okay, so let's read the next verse. If you have any comments or questions, Devavati, Mahatma, anyone who's there, if you can go to Krsna.com/live, you can get on the chat there. So we're going to read text. This is text 25, first canto, 6th chapter. Etavad uktvo pararamatan mahat bhutam navolingam alingam isharam aham chatasmai mahatam mahiyase shishnavanam vidade nukam pita. Then that supreme authority personified by sound and unseen by eyes, most wonderful, stopped speaking. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I offer my obeisances unto him, bowing my head. Let's see if there's a word for gratitude here. I think the word is anukampita, being favored by him. I think that's what Prabhupada uses as for gratitude. So Narada Muni saw Krishna. Krishna disappeared. Narada Muni heard Krishna speaking to him. Now he stopped speaking. And so Narada Muni is now saying that he understood why Krishna appeared. He appeared to encourage him. He appeared to increase his hankering, the positive side of spiritual life. So the negative side was good. There was no material desire. But he appeared to increase the positive side, which is hankering. Because spiritual life is not neutral. That's Brahmabhuta stage. That's just a foundational stage for spiritual life. But spiritual life in bhakti is all about hankering for Krishna. So now he's feeling that he's been uplifted and purified and edified by this darshan. So he's just feeling grateful that Krishna took the time to come to him and help him. That the personality of Godhead was not seen but only heard does not make any difference. The personality of Godhead produced the 4 Vedas by his breathing, and he is seen and realized through the transcendental sound of the Vedas. Similarly, the Bhagavad Gita is the sound representation of the Lord, and there's no difference in identity. The conclusion is that the Lord can be seen and heard by persistent chanting of transcendental sound. So this is something which is very important for us. Okay, Judy's on the chat, that's good. And Devavati, if you want to come to Krsna.com/live, you can join the chat there. This is something which is important because of our conditioning, we have a very strong tendency to want to see Krishna, to have the desire to see Krishna. And we have a belief on some level, even though we know it's not true, that seeing Krishna is better than hearing Krishna. That if I said, Prabhus, you have the choice. You can hear Krishna, he'll speak to you, give you some instruction. You could hear a story about Krishna. We could read you a story from the Bhagavatam about Krishna. Or we can invite Krishna in, and he can sit down and you can see him. Which would you choose? We know the answer, right? Oh, I just want darshan. I just want to see Krishna. Right? So, Prabhupada makes a few points about this. And one point is that because Krishna is absolute, hearing him with the ear is not different than seeing him with the eye. But the difference is in our consciousness because we experience it differently or we think it's different. So therefore we think if we see with the eye, it will be better. But actually the reality is if we can't hear with the ear, then the experience of seeing with the eye will be no different. We are seeing the deities. Many temples we go to, we see the deities. When Mahaprabhu went to Jagannath Puri and he saw Lord Jagannath, he fainted in ecstasy. Why did he faint in ecstasy? Because he saw Shyam Sundar, Krishna, cowherd boy. That's who he saw. Now you may go in the Jagannath temple and you might feel something, get excited or whatever. But until you're pure, I'm saying you because I can't go in. I can't say we could go in because I can't go in. So I'm saying you could go in because there are 3 devotees here in this class and they could all go in the Jagannath temple. And some of you who are listening could go in the Jagannath temple. But obviously, when we go into the Jagannath temple, you go into the Jagannath and you see Lord Jagannath, you don't faint. So that's Prabhupada's point. That as you're hearing the pastimes or hearing the holy name and having a difficulty in realizing that Krishna is present in that name or in hearing, we have the same difficulty in realizing Krishna's presence when we see the deity. Because if we could realize Krishna's presence fully in the holy name, which happens at the stage of bhava, then when we see the deity, we would be seeing Krishna also. So it's not like you'll get one without the other. No, if I could just see Krishna, that would be it. No, but you wouldn't be seeing Krishna because he's transcendental, and your eyes cannot perceive through your consciousness. So if you can't hear Krishna as Krishna, not different than his name, why would you see him? It's not, but we think, no, you see him, that's him. And what's the proof of this? Well, one example we already gave, seeing the deity. You're seeing Krishna. Krishna is the deity. And another example we get from the Bhagavatam, that Prabhupada said Krishna was on the planet. Not everybody who saw him understood who he was. It took him to be somebody special, but they didn't understand him as God. And just as everyone who saw Prabhupada didn't understand, here's Sadhu. Not everybody could see. So we're seeing, we're hearing, everything is through our consciousness. Right? So Prabhupada said there's no difference between hearing the Bhagavatam and being with Krishna. He said you can see Krishna on the pages of the Bhagavatam, but who is he addressing? That means potentially you can see, because Krishna is there. So if you have the eyes to see, if you have the ears to see, you can see it, but you require purification. Just as you can realize Krishna in his name. If you're on the stage of bhava, you will realize that. But you can realize it a little bit in the present stage, correct? So you realize Krishna and the deity to some degree, but fully manifest. Prabhupada speaks to Krishna and the deity, and Krishna speaks back to him. Prabhupada asks questions to the deity, and Krishna speaks to him. I tried that. It didn't work for me. Because I heard the story that Prabhupada spoke to the deities. He asked the deities, how are you doing? How are the devotees taking care of you? And the deities said, they're taking nice care of us. Dressing us well, feeding us, we're happy. So I went to Mauritius, and I was the temple president when the deities were installed. So I went there, and I saw the deities after so many years, and I said, so how are the devotees taking care of you? I said, why did you bring me here? I asked questions. I said, why did you bring me here? Do you want me to come back? And are the devotees taking care of you? And I was listening for the answers. Turn up my hearing aid. No, I couldn't hear. But later on, a few days later, Krishna spoke to me through the devotees, and he answered one of the questions, why did you bring me? He answered it through the devotees. So he knew my desire and he had to answer it in a way which I could hear it, but I was not yet ready to hear it from him. So I'm not on that level, right? So even though Krishna's there and he could speak, I'm not ready to hear. But anyway, fortunately he spoke in another way. He answered my question, why did you bring me here? He answered it very clearly through the devotees. It was obvious that he spoke through them. So, so what do we do? What do we do if we're hearing the Gita, we're hearing the Bhagavatam, we're seeing the deity, we're chanting the holy name, and we don't fully realize Krishna is present there? What do we do? How do we deal with it? And we can't force that realization because it's only due to our advancement, our purity, our devotion, our mentality that we'll be able to perceive Krishna. And it's really the purification of the senses that's required. And our senses are being purified, but they're not fully purified. So what do? We have faith in the instruction that Prabhupada said Krishna is there in his words. And so we take it that way. This is Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita is Krishna. We honor, we worship it. The Bhagavatam is Krishna. Bhagavatam is always placed above the devotee, higher than the devotee. We honor the Bhagavatam. This is Krishna. He's present, fully present in these leelas. We honor it that way. We accept it that way. We worship Krishna's words. We worship his pastimes. We offer our obeisances to his pastimes. We worship and honor his holy name. We offer obeisances to his holy name because it's Krishna. We do the same thing with the deity because we are told Krishna is in the deity, so we worship the deity. It's based on faith. And through that faith, we approach the deity, the holy name, the Bhagavatam, the Gita. We approach them with faith that Krishna is here. And that's how Krishna can reveal himself through these mediums. Now there's another interesting thing that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said as to why we can't see God, even if God were to appear. Could you imagine in this materialistic culture, if Krishna descended on this planet? The headlines, God descends, or some say God descends, and Krishna appears. Do you think people would actually see him? Do you think people would actually accept him as God? Think the Christians would accept him as God? Vishnu appears, 4 arms, or Krishna appears, and he performs his Leela. Do you think people would accept him as God? Do you think people would understand he's God? Maybe they'd lock him up. Who knows? Right? Of course, you can't lock Krishna up unless he wants to be locked up. But just try to imagine. Krishna descends. As Prabhupada said, Krishna descended 5,000 years ago. People were more qualified than we are. He said very few people knew he was God. And the demons, of course, they couldn't understand he was God. They hated him. Even though he was so attractive, but they didn't see that. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, if you see Krishna's beauty from the vision of material consciousness, you'll just try to enjoy it. Here Krishna descends. He's a very beautiful boy. Let's enjoy him. But when you see it with the eye of devotion, then you see it through the eye of service. Oh, this beauty, it is so intense. It is awakening in my heart the desire to love and serve. But in material consciousness, it will awaken in your heart the desire to enjoy Krishna. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that therefore, if that's your mentality, when you look at Krishna from the mood of to try to enjoy him, then you're not seeing him, because you can't see Krishna with that attitude. You can only see Krishna from the consciousness of I am servant, not that I'm enjoying. So in the same way, when we approach the holy name, we approach it and I'm the servant of the holy name. I'm chanting the holy name to please Krishna. Not that I'm trying to get some enjoyment from this. Or the enjoyment comes as a product of being in the service mode. You want to appreciate Krishna's beauty fully, then you approach Krishna when you see him in the deity in the mood of service, and then you'll appreciate the beauty. If you want to enjoy the beauty, now I am the enjoyer, so I will enjoy God's beauty. That's material consciousness. So then you're not seeing Krishna. Because that's not how you see Krishna. Like Jambavan was fighting Krishna, so he wasn't seeing Krishna because he wasn't in the right attitude. He was trying to, in some way, accomplish something for himself. And so he was fighting Krishna to get the Shambhataka jewel, to keep it. But it was only due to the fact that Krishna took that as service that he became purified. And when he became purified, then he saw, here is my worshipful Lord. He couldn't see that. So if you try to enjoy Krishna, you're not seeing Krishna. That's not the... But when you try to serve him, then you see that's Krishna. So how to see the holy name, how to see Bhagavatam. We hear Bhagavatam in reverence. We serve the Bhagavatam. We serve by giving our attention, our devotion to hearing the Leelas, but we serve by applying the instructions. In the same way we serve the holy name. We're in the mood of humility when we chant. We're in the mood of service when we chant. Right? Oh, Krishna, let me engage in your service. I want nothing from you. We're totally in the mood of service. That's how we realize Krishna's presence in his name. Or in the Bhagavatam, or in the deity. Otherwise, you can't realize it. That's why we get bored chanting. Because now we're not realizing Krishna in his name. And it's only just sound. It's just like you can look at the deity and see a statue. You can read Bhagavatam and fall asleep. But if you're in the right consciousness, then no. In my japa workshops, people always ask, what do I do when I get sleepy when I chant Hare Krishna? And I say, do you ever get sleepy when you eat something you really like and you're hungry? And of course they say no. I say, so you get my point. Why are you sleepy? Because you're not realizing Krishna in his name. And when you realize Krishna in his name, by being in the right consciousness when you chant, you won't get sleepy. But if you're not in the proper consciousness, then Krishna's name just becomes a material sound. That puts you to sleep. Anything you repeat for 2 hours, anything material will put you to sleep. So if you lose the substance of chanting, which is your dedication, your devotion, then you're just making a sound. So certainly that sound makes you bored and sleepy. Right? I mean, take any material sound and try to chant it over and over and over again. It's very boring. Right? When you're in America, when you do something wrong, I don't know if they do this anymore, they make you write something on the board 100 times. I will never talk in class. I will never talk in class. I will never talk in class. They do that in India? Or write in a book, I will never talk in class again. Now, if that were transcendental, it would be inspiring. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. That would be nice. But I will never talk again in class. It's a material sound, so it's just boring to do that. Which is why they make you do it. It's a punishment. So if we take bhakti in a material way, then it's like we punish ourselves. Then reading is punishment. And someone says, I really don't like to read much. I'm not so into deity worship, not so into chanting. No. When your senses are purified, all these things become attractive. When you're in the right consciousness, they all become attractive. Does that make sense? Let's see if anyone has a question or comment. Cristiano from Cristianos, Italiano, Cristiano, Hare Krishna, Cristiano. And Roma is connected with Cristiano, and it's a perfect name because Roma is the name of tomatoes, at least in America. So Italians and tomatoes is a perfect match. So when Roma gets initiated, we'll just put tomato on her name. So we'll call her Roma Tomato Dasi. It'll all be perfect. Maybe we won't. We'll have to think about it. Okay. Timothy says, what you read in the beginning of the class scared me, mainly the word tinge, if by the end of my life I still have a tinge of material desire, though still deciding to serve, I have to come back. What does it mean then when Krishna says he will make up what we lack at the time of death? Very good question. Strictly speaking, if we have any tinge of desire, that brings us back, right? That's like strictly speaking. And you're hoping I say but after this, right? Because if I don't say but, then we're all in trouble, right? But there's a couple things that we can look at. I think the most important thing to look at is Prabhupada's instruction, which he gave, I don't know how many times, but over and over, hundreds of times. 16 rounds, chant 16 rounds a day, follow the 4 regular principles, rise early, 10 Mangalarti, engage in service. In this lifetime, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. So, what does that mean exactly? You can look at it from a number of ways. One way to look at it is, if you do this, then at the end of your life, you will not have any tinge. You'll be so attracted to Krishna, so attached to Krishna, there'll be no tinge. Another way of looking at it, as you quoted this verse, Ananyas Chintayantamam Ye Janaparyupasate Tesham Nityabhyuktanam Yogakshema Vaham Yaham, that Krishna will make up for the lack. So Prabhupada will come, your spiritual master will come through some divine descent, will come and uplift you in those last days of your life through kripa, because of your sincere service and dedication and desire to Krishna consciousness, to purify you, to make you free from desire. Now, Timothy, I have something that's very encouraging. My father died at the age of 92, I believe. Something like that. Yeah. Something like that. So, at the age of about 88, 89, 90, he could no longer walk without use of some kind of walker. There's a certain point where he could no longer drive himself. It was up to, mid-late 80s, he was fine. But at a certain point, he could no longer drive, walk without a walker. And then it was like starting to become painful to get up and sit down. And then he was losing his hearing. People lose their hearing and you say, "You need a hearing aid." And they say, "What?" "You need a hearing aid." They say, "What?" And then you scream, and then they say, "No, I can hear you. I don't need a hearing aid." And you're, ah! That's what you have to look forward to, in taking care of your parents. And then he was losing his eyesight, and his two favorite activities, it seemed, I think his favorite activity was reading, but he liked to watch television. And so it was really difficult for him because he couldn't read. He lost his, I think his sight was going bad, but at a certain point he couldn't read. I mean, he could read with magnifying glasses or could read a little bit, but at some point he couldn't read. So at a certain point he said, "I've lived a long life. Now I can't hear, I can't read, I can't walk, so I'm just happy to die now." And I was thinking, Krishna put this in front of me to show me that even though now we might think, well, I have so many material desires, but why? What is one of the reasons we have so many material desires? Because we think we can enjoy them. But when you get to that age, what to speak if you're Krishna conscious, way before your body breaks down, when you get older, you become detached as a devotee. It's just a natural process. We discussed that yesterday. But let's say even you don't even have faith that you'll even come to that stage. Then your body breaks down. Then you can't even enjoy. There's nothing. Your body can't do anything. It's like Prabhupada once said. He said, "Get married before you're 30. It's not very enjoyable after 30." So what did he mean? I think he meant, your sexual attractions go down when you get older. So if you want to enjoy, you want to really enjoy, do it when you're young, because then you can enjoy. As you get older, it's, the sensual part of marriage is not as enjoyable. So he was, speaking at it from a material point of view. So as you get older, it's just, you have less ability to enjoy. And then as you progress in Krishna consciousness, your enjoyment becomes more from service. Anyway, now there is a story, I don't know if you're aware, but Prabhupada gave a class and he said you have to be completely Krishna conscious to go back to Godhead. If you have a pinch of desire, you can't go. And then he looked at the audience. You could see that everybody was very dejected because everybody thought, well, how will I ever get out of the material world? So Prabhupada said 90%. He reduced it. And everyone still looked dejected. It went down 80%. Right? Who knows the story? How far did he go down? 70%, I think. You know the story? So he kept seeing these dejected faces. He kept reducing it. I think he reduced it down, 70% Krishna conscious, because that's anartha nivritti means 75% of your anarthas are removed. So maybe he said, okay, anartha nivritti, 70%, on that stage. And still, devotees weren't satisfied, because most devotees were not feeling even qualified. At 70%, at 30% discount still. So then Prabhupada said something. He was walking out of the class, and then he still saw that devotees weren't satisfied, and he said something like, if you just hold on to my dhoti, or hold on to my feet, or grab onto my dhoti, he said, I have the key to the back door in Vaikuntha, so just grab onto my dhoti and we'll take you there. So that's our faith. Our faith is in the instruction of Prabhupada. He said, do this process and you'll go back to Godhead. So whether you feel qualified or not, or free from every tinge of material desire or not, our faith is that the process works, and our faith is that by Prabhupada's mercy, he will do whatever has to be done. Now, there's a nice story. I may have told this story before. There was a devotee, I think I told it when I was at your house, Reha and Roma. Ray and we were giving some classes at their house, Reha and Roma's house. And I believe I told the story about a devotee who had left Krishna consciousness. And I think he became a drug dealer and a drug addict and everything else that goes along with that lifestyle. And he had remarried, or he had a girlfriend, and the girlfriend really knew nothing about Krishna consciousness other than that he had been a devotee, but he had given up Krishna consciousness, so he didn't talk about it. So she didn't even know who Prabhupada was. So when he was leaving his body, or after he left his body, she went to the temple and she said, who is Prabhupada? She didn't know, because he didn't talk to her about it. And they said, who are you and why are you asking? You said, well, my husband used to be a devotee, used to be a Hare Krishna. And when he was dying, he sat up and said, oh, Prabhupada, you've come. So I understood it must be someone in your movement who was Prabhupada. So Prabhupada actually came to him, even though he had rejected Krishna consciousness. So we have faith in that kind of mercy, that if we are sincere in this life, serving Krishna, despite all our problems, and as we're saying, despite this struggle that we're not achieving what we want as soon as we want, and we just continue and we have faith that through this process Krishna will purify us. We go on that way. Now, Timothy, there's another stage that we come to. And the next stage beyond that is we don't care if we go back to Godhead, because we just want to serve. We want to do what Krishna wants. And if Krishna wants us to go, we go. If he doesn't, we don't. That's a higher stage. So that's the liberated stage, because Devavati, if there's anyone on Mayapur chat that's saying anything, let me know what they're saying, or send them over here, because I'm not on Mayapur chat. So, when you reach a certain stage of devotional service, then your desire is to serve Krishna wherever he wants you, heaven, hell. And so there's a verse, Narakeshu, Svarga Pavarga, Narakeshu, Api Tulyartada. You see heaven and hell as the same, because where you're with Krishna, so that's it. That's all that matters. You're with Krishna, so. And you want to be of service. So if Krishna doesn't want you back to Godhead, you don't want to go. You might say, but don't you want to be with Krishna? You want to see him? You want to serve him? You want to. You're already with Krishna. You're liberated. You just want to. If Krishna doesn't want you back to Godhead, you don't want to go. He wants you to stay in the material world and preach. That's what you'll do. You're happy. So that's a stage which is called pure devotional service. And the desire to go back to Godhead is that I want to go. What if I never get out of this material and I have to stay here? No. That's called Jnana Mishra Bhakti. It means that our service is mixed with the desire to become free from suffering. So when you come to pure devotional service, you lose the desire to become free from suffering. You lose the desire to be liberated. That's unalloyed devotional service. That's pure. So that's where we want to come from. And so we come to this point. It's like whatever Krishna wants. I just serve. So that, and then in that way, you won't have any worry when you come to that level. Now you might say, but isn't it good to have a desire to go back to God? It is good in a certain stage, but what's good at one stage is not good at another stage. So it becomes an impetus, but at a higher stage, it becomes a contamination. Does that answer your question? So I think the ultimate answer is don't worry, go on with your devotional service. And as far as desire, you see, what's important, and a mistake we can sometimes make is we focus on becoming free from material desire. Just focus on the desire to serve Krishna purely. That's what we want to focus on. Because if you focus on that, there is no room for material desire. If you focus on becoming free from material desire, you may not come up with a spiritual desire. So our process is positive. Not, Gyan is negative. Let me become free from material desire. Let me see how bad the world is. Become free. But the positive process is let me intensify my desire to serve Guru and Krishna. Let me intensify my desire to help other people. So when you come to this point, Timothy, that you just as a servant of Krishna, as a servant of your Guru, as a servant of Prabhupada, as a servant of people who need Krishna consciousness, you just want to help them. That's freedom from material desire. And that's the stage we want to come to. And that's the stage Prabhupada is pushing us to come to. And when your desire is only to give Krishna to others, then you're liberated. You don't have to worry. And at that point, you won't care anymore. You'll just want to help people. That you only exist to help people. Even if you come to that stage, you might even regret going back to God, because you'll think, I could help more people down here. I would like to stay in the mission of Prabhupada and serve him in some other universe or wherever he is. That becomes the desire. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he's saying, Narod Vijay Paradharatya Vaitaranyas. I don't have any trouble for myself. He says, Mahad Magna Chitta, my consciousness is absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So I'm happy myself. So Chaitato Vimukha Chaitasa Indriyatam. But my anxiety is about the other people. So he's saying, I don't feel comfortable going back to Godhead if I go without all these people. So he's like totally beyond now any desire. And he's saying, I'm happy here where I am, hearing and chanting about you. But my anxiety, the only anxiety I have is that there's other people who aren't Krishna conscious. So then you come to that stage. Then you're wherever you are, you're in Krishna consciousness. You have no material desire. But generally the understanding is that when you die in that consciousness, Krishna takes you into his own lila for further purification to get you ready so that you develop complete prema. Because unless you have prema, you can't go back to Krishna. So usually in this life, our perfection will achieve bhava. And then we'll get prema when we go into Krishna lila. And then we'll go back to God. Because prema doesn't manifest in this body. So you go up to Baba in this life, or anyway, I think ultimately our shelter is in Prabhupada's instructions, and our shelter is that we follow these instructions, we'll be taken care of, and we're protected, and we don't have to worry. We just serve purely the mission that Prabhupada has given us to help people by giving them Krishna. And he'll take care of everything. We have that faith. Of course, serving that mission means following his instructions, vigilant sadhana, rising early, and so forth. Chanting, properly following the principles, studying his books carefully so we understand all these things. Is that okay? Just become a liberated soul by focusing on liberating others. You'll be happy. You'll be satisfied. You won't worry about going back to God. It won't even matter. You'll already be there. You know, somebody's chanting there. Somebody's sitting down every morning chanting their rounds. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They're realizing Krishna in his name. They're crying. They're feeling this intense emotion in their heart. You think they're really worried about going back to Godhead? They're already there. It's not even a consideration. It's just, Krishna, what do you want me to do? How can I serve you? It's just like if you're in ecstatic kirtan. You don't worry about going back to Godhead. You're ecstatic. Right? You're with Krishna at that point. So it doesn't become a concern anymore. Right? Okay. Now, I can't wave my magic wand and go, Timothy, you are now there. Roma Tomato, you are now there. Hare, ha, you are now there. If I were an Uttama Adhikari, yeah, maybe I can do that. But even Uttama Adhikari, if somebody doesn't want it, he can't give it to them either. So Krishna, I can help you, but I can't do it for you. I can encourage you. I can show you the direction, but I can't do it for you. That you have to do yourself. I can only show you that this is the goal, and this is how you should be thinking. And that if you go on in your devotional service, someday you will be thinking this way, if you're not thinking this way now. But Prabhupada encouraged us as far as possible to think in this way. But then you might say, but it's artificial for me because I don't feel this way. That's exactly right. It is artificial if you don't feel that way. So to try to think in that way before it's realized, it's better you think, Krishna, I want to get out of here. I hate this world. So that, if that's your realization, then think like that, because that will help you. But my point is, by thinking like that, eventually you will come to realize that that is the wrong way to approach Krishna. I should approach him only to serve. But if it's the only way I can push myself forward in devotional service, then I should think like that.